Welcome. Welcome. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Radio Toons podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Ernie.
If you're just joining us, if this is your first episode, let me just introduce myself. I'm Steve. I animate. I make the cartoons on here. And this is my brother Ernie. He joins me for the podcast and for the gameplay videos, and he helps out with other art things here on the channel.
Graphics and such.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it. We just talk about whatever the fuck we think is cool or whatever we've been doing.
I know that sounds kind of badass, but it's not. It's just weird. That's just what we talk about on here.
But yeah, so we've been watching a lot of TV.
Oh yeah.
They added a bunch of stuff to Netflix that we've been watching.
Yeah.
They added this show that some of you may know called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
With Jerry Seinfeld.
That's a pretty good show.
Yeah, I like it.
You've seen a couple episodes.
Yeah, and they're all mixed up.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no logical season 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
They have them on Netflix where it says a cup of Joe, and then it says extra brew.
Yeah, it says first cup, and I was
I don't get what that means.
This is some Jerry Seinfeld shit, that little corniness that he brings to everything. Yeah. Okay, I'm a fan of Jerry Seinfeld, obviously.
Me too. I love
Seinfeld. But obviously a lot of that show was Larry David as well. It wasn't just him, so...
Right, and, not to talk too much about Seinfeld, but Jerry on that show wasn't the best part of that show.
No, exactly.
It was like the other three comedians who, really made it work. That actually brings me to the first part of that series is, the beginning of this, just to give everybody, an overview. The first part of it is Jerry introduces this car. And the car is matched to the personality of the comedian he's going to go have coffee with. As
far as Jerry goes, he thinks it goes
He thinks it matches him. So that's the first part, and the episodes are only 15, 16 minutes.
Which is weird, because he gets a Lamborghini or something for Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah.
And it's why? Well, I don't even...
Because he said it's a little short blade cutting through the air, just like Jim Carrey's comedy, just cutting through, getting straight to the point, that kind of thing. And
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and it's unpredictable, blah blah. It's
arguable card choices.
He kind of does that little spiel, then he goes and picks them up. Supposedly, he's like, "Hey, you want to go get coffee?" And they say, "Yeah, come on over." Supposedly, spur of the moment. I don't think it's spur of the moment.
You know what's funny? There's the Louis C.K. episode. Mm-hmm. He picks an orange car, and when he gets there, he literally just says, "He's like, you're orange." The car's orange. That's it.
Look.
Okay, wow, cool.
So there's no real timeline to it, but they're titled by the comedian,
by the guest, right?
Yeah. And so we kind of just picked the ones that we wanted to see because we like the comedians.
I would say that would be a good way to look at it. If you're into comedy and comedic actors, it's not a bad show to just put on as long as you pick a guest that you're into because. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
It's like Kevin Hart. I'm not gonna watch that shit. Or I don't know, Jay Leno. I was I don't, whatever. Maybe, but
the one thing I will say that's a real big positive to it. Mm-hmm. Whoever is shooting that series, really good cinematography. Just real great. Huh?
You like the look
I love
of
the cinematography because they do the shots of the car, so it's a real good car commercial in the very beginning, which I love. I love good shots of the car. But once they actually go to the place that they're having coffee in, it looks like they actually shoot the equipment they have there.
They don't. I'm sure that's all B-roll.
No, it is B-roll, but I think it's because, for example, in the Michael...
Some of it maybe, yeah. Some of it maybe.
The reason I say that is because specifically the Michael Richards episode, Dr. Kramer.
Right.
They go to some dumpy little cafe.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a cafeteria, almost, because they're sitting next to a refrigerator that has a bunch of drinks in it.
Oh, right, that's right, yeah.
And when they shoot the B-roll in betweens, it's like she's the lady's making a cup out of a cup of coffee, and she's making it out of one of the ones that you find at 7-Eleven.
Right, yeah.
It's not the Italian roast and the frothing the milk.
Right, but there's plenty of that in there too.
There is, but most places that do a decent cup of coffee will have that equipment.
It's also one of these shows that has the contrast blown out.
Oh, yeah.
Notice that? The green...
Well, not the contrast, the saturation is way up.
Yeah, the saturation. It's the greens are green as fuck.
Yes.
And the blues are burning into my retinas.
Super bright, yeah.
Right. I actually didn't even know Norm Macdonald had blue eyes until I watched this show because they're piercing my television. That Norm Macdonald one's a good episode too.
It is. It's a great episode. Okay, so just off the top of your head, not the top one or whatever, but what was one of the ones that kind of stuck with you?
I think if you watch any episode about like a Seinfeld cast member, you're good.
Yeah, I think
like
that's true.
Elaine Kramer, Larry David, you know, like other people that have been affiliated with Seinfeld. You're in a pretty good territory there, you know. Like Louis C.K. was one of my favorite episodes, though. Not just because I like Louis C.K., but because his episode in particular, I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
His has like a little cartoon in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he tells a story about how he got shipwrecked, quote unquote, and they like animate it with like little stick figures and like, you know, like a kid drew it basically.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, that's cool. Like at least the show has some production value, basically. You know, it's not just like, you know. Anyway, but yeah, that's mine. I don't know about yours. What do you think?
So far, like it was kind of dumb. Like for example, he interviews a wide spectrum of comedians. So he'll go from somebody like Kristen Wiig, who arguably is just starting out. She's like 4 seasons on SNL. Or she'll do like a really hot person like Kevin Hart, who's like super hot right now. He's
right.
Or like really old school, Mel Brooks.
Yeah, Mel Brooks and.
But I think you're right. The one that stuck with me so far was the one with Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
That was a really good episode. Yeah. It
was so. I don't know if you would agree with this, but when you hang out like back in high school, when you hung out with your friends, there were some people who were just like best friends.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was always just almost entertaining just to watch them interact because they almost share a mind.
They have a good chemistry, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was seeing in that episode, because there's this part where they're both married, and they have this talk about Jerry. When he was younger, he was like totally against marriage, and so Julia is like, I never thought you'd get married. It's so weird. And he's like, yeah, and I still don't like marriage. Ha ha ha. And they laugh. And she's like, fights for me right now are so. They start off with something so small.
Yeah.
And she goes like, why? And then she hits the table with her hand and goes, are there coffee grounds here?
Yeah.
And Jerry's like, the emphasis of why on these coffee grounds, and just watching that little interaction of them setting up this joke, so great.
It's very
so fantastic.
It's very Seinfeld-y. You can see why like they chose someone like Julia to play Elaine.
Julia is
because she had just like such a great sense of the something really small is pissing me off right now, and it's like you as a person are annoying me. Basically, that's basically like the essence of Seinfeld. Even in the Larry David episode, he says the same thing, that like Larry David will find like the smallest things, like as he gets older he'll just say like, why do you do that? Like that annoys me.
Well, that is kind of the whole the whole thing in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
The Kramer one, again, just to kind of stick to this motif, the Kramer one was also, man, that one was kind of all over the place, which is really reflecting on who Michael Richards was or is. But I think it's so crazy that they didn't really go into depth about it, but they did talk about the incident that happened to him several years ago.
So if you guys don't know, it was the Laugh Factory. That's where it was.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he called somebody the N-word in a comedy club. And,
because they were heckling him and telling him he wasn't funny.
Yeah, it turns out people don't like that. So he basically he shunned himself, I would say. I wouldn't say he got shunned, but he like basically didn't do anything comedy related. Like he still doesn't, right? Like
he still doesn't. No. Like he's walked away from comedy.
Yeah, he did the Seinfeld reunion on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And that's about it as far as I know.
Yeah, well, because like he says it in the episode that hurt him really deeply, because it showed that like he was trying to do stand-up. He had never kind of done it before. Right. And that reaction he didn't like about himself,
Yeah, like people would defend him by saying that when he gets into like a character, he becomes that person, and if that...
I mean, fine, but then it says one of his characters is racist. I mean, I don't know. I will say this. I mean,
that's
like,
funny. People like racist jokes and stuff,
He is... I like how he said, I could have done Kramer for the rest of my life. And I totally believe that he could, because seeing him do Kramer on those episodes was very like... That character was all over the place.
I think if you asked anybody what they like about Seinfeld, they'll say Kramer. He was like,
I think for the most part,
like,
you're right.
I mean, like, hardcore fans of the show might be like, it's George. George is obviously just like Larry David's personality, like his embodiment, basically. Right. But a lot of people will say Kramer. Kramer is what the show is known for. He's the wacky guy. He's the one doing all the stunts, basically, Yeah,
it's funny that you say that because there is a point in the show where he's like, man, where do you want to go, Jerry? And he's like, well, if we go in there, they're going to start bugging us. And Jerry goes, oh, Kramer, just free yourself. And he has this little costume that he puts on so that people don't recognize him. Because he was talking, he says, Jerry, I can't go anywhere. It's like, I went to South Africa, and there was this little village, and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody comes out speaking gibberish, and then there's like, Kramer. And it's like, they know me freaking everywhere. It's like, how crazy to be known and be loved so much, and yet have this weight of this incident that happened to you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it probably, like, all of that attention that he got before, that was just, love, completely flipped on its head now that after that incident. I'm sure people are saying stuff because people like to be dicks.
Yeah, but then in the episode, like, I had kind of a roller coaster of emotions because in the episode, they do this wonderful little thing where they cut out the audio, just have some like piano keys going, like some really jazzy music, and they just have them walking around and talking usually.
Yeah.
But for Kramer's episode, they ran into some fans and people were just like, "We love," like you could tell they're like, "Oh, it's Kramer, we love you."
Yeah,
blah,
they took
blah,
pictures with them and stuff.
And he was like interacting with them, and everybody loved him.
Kind of in character too,
You could tell like he was doing the motions like he was Kramer.
Yeah, because there's one point where I think he takes a picture of himself or something, and
yeah,
he's doing wacky stuff. But it's, I mean, that's why that show is so good. It's like you can tell when Jerry does, or even Larry, when they do like reunion stuff, they're all like happy to see each other.
Oh
like,
my gosh,
I can't speak for Jason Alexander because I don't think he's even in that show.
No, not yet.
He's not in Comedians in Cars yet, but the rest of them, they just have such good chemistry because they all seem like like they love doing that show, and it's a good.
But also, all of them are super brutally honest, like when Julia's running around with Jerry, like, oh, by the way, Kramer got some old VW truck that was all rusted over.
Yeah.
That's what he brought to pick up Kramer. But for Julia, he brought an Aston Martin, which is James Bond's signature car. And he's like, because this is you, Julia, this is you. You're like the James Bond of comedy. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah. That's why I said it was arguable. I was like, what the... Like, Jerry is, like, either on drugs when he does these, or...
I think he just likes to drive a certain car, and he drives it. It's like... But in that episode where he's talking to Julia, he asks, like, brutal... Like, they could be brutal with each other, and she goes, like... He's like, I'm a nice person, right? He's like, I think you can be nice. But you're definitely not nice. Yeah. I was like, wow. And that's the kind of conversation you have with, like, a best friend.
No, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you were with a casual person, you just exclaim that I'm a nice person. I do good. I'm a good person. But like your best friend will be like, you can do good things.
By the way, I never trust that. By the way, I don't know why.
What?
That's like a red flag to me when somebody just says I'm a nice person. I'm like,
then you're definitely not.
I'm like, really? That's a normal thing for you to just say? Is just
sounds like you say that a lot.
I am very nice. Yeah, like reassurance. Is that what you're like? What do you want from like? Okay, you're nice.
I don't trust. I think I borrow from what is it? Civil War. I think it's Civil War where Tony Stark says, "I don't trust anybody that doesn't have a dark side." I think that's kind of true. And people who say that are trying to hide the fact that they've done bad things. I was like, don't tell me that, because then you're like, I don't do bad things, is what you're trying to tell me. Because you're like, I'm a good person. I was like, listen, we're nobody's perfect. We all do shitty things, just whatever. But I like the interaction that Julia has with him because she's really honest with him. And I love that at some point, I forget the exact line, but Jerry's like, do you remember? And then she fills in the rest of the sentence. She's like,
she knows
the parking. I think she said the parking structure episode. Yeah. And he goes like, he takes a step back, or he like leans back. He's like, how did you know I was going to say that? And she goes, because I knew you were going to say that. I was like, but
it was set up. It was scripted. I'm just kidding. Oh my God. I'm just kidding.
I so far been enjoying it, but the Kristen Wiig one, like, I like her as a comedian.
You said, quote unquote, she's new.
That's
new. What you said. So maybe she doesn't have enough stories.
I don't think so.
In
and
the
you
industry,
know what?
Or like she just doesn't have like interesting interesting things to say yet. I don't know.
Yeah, because you're talking to Jerry Seinfeld, who's been around so long that he was able, like at one, I forget which interview it was, but it was like he saw Richard Pryor perform.
Oh,
that's old school.
He's in every facet of comedy. Not to mention he's a meme. He's the fucking bee in the Bee Movie. So he's a meme too. He's everything, you know? Like, you can't stop him. You know, this show, though, is really good if you're a fan of, like, obviously comedy. But when you're trying to get good at something, I know you're always reaching for some kind of content as far as, like, what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And that's where the show is good, because there's definitely a lot of just raw moments that they leave in there. Mm-hmm. Like, there's moments in that Michael Richards episode where you see him, like, he's just like, I'm glad you stuck by me, Jerry, after that incident and stuff. And they have, like, these cool little interactions that, like, you might want to see from people you like. If that makes any sense. You know, you want to see them be people, basically. You know, you want to see what goes on behind the scenes. This is a great show for that, especially the Norm Macdonald episode, because...
That one was touching, too, because at one point, Norm Macdonald, they get him from the restaurant. Uh-huh. And he's like, ooh, you look happy. He's like, of course I'm happy. He's like, we're in a diner, getting warmed up with this cup of coffee. And then Norm says, like, and fellowship. And then he takes a sip, and I was like, oh, that was heartwarming.
I said especially Norm because, like, anytime you see Norm, he's on, you know?
Yeah.
Norm goes on talk shows, he has material. He's, like, one of the only comedians that goes on there with punchlines and jokes. Martin Short does that, too, and I love that. Their interviews are always really good. But, yeah, so it's cool to just see, like, him talk about how he actually does comedy or, like, his mentality and going into things and stuff. He has, like, that World War bit. He always does, like...
That World War bit was really good.
It just... I couldn't even do it justice, but the gist of it is that, like, Germany always chooses their enemy to be the world. Yeah, that's the gist of the joke, but I can't tell, like, him.
I will say this. The most... I don't know if it's sad. I don't know if it's interesting. I don't know quite the word to describe the Jim Carrey episode.
Okay.
But he's obviously been this comedy... He's been a part of my life in terms of, like, comedy for the longest time. And to see him now get into these weird conversations with people where he's like... He interacts with the waitress and he's like, hi, Molly, is it? He's like, you're not Molly. He's like, I feel like a Molly. He's like, well, you'll get there. You'll discover who you really are. And I was like, what does that mean, Jim?
Yeah. Look, I don't hate Jim Carrey, but...
No, but that's the thing. That conversation, does it scare you?
I don't know. There's just, like, things that Jim Carrey does that I'm like, that's him. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of, like, his comedy. I like a lot of his movies. Yeah. But him... As a person, I'm just like, I don't know. Like,
I've never liked his stand-up.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't like him doing comedy, like, alone, but as a comedic actor, I do like him. Because I like The Truman Show. I love The Truman Show. You know, I like The Mask. I like Dumb and Dumber. He does great movies. Maybe he's just not the one who should be writing it, basically, you know?
Maybe. Never liked his stand-up because a lot of his stand-up is impressions. I'm not a big fan of impressions.
I like impressions.
But... I did used to watch him all the time on A Living Color. Mm-hmm. And in Living Color, he had, like, a bunch of great bits. Like, I think his most famous bit is when he did the Vanilla Ice dance. Uh-huh. And then he did Fire Marshal Bill, which was great. Like, he did a bunch of great characters on there. Those are just the ones that I could think of off the top of my head.
Impressions will only get you so far, I guess.
Right. Huh? But, like, his movie career has been way, way better to him.
You know? It's weird, too, because it's like... He just stopped doing movies all of a sudden, right? Like, I want to say there's just like a huge gap of him not doing shit. Like,
no, he did. It's because he stopped doing comedy for a little bit to do serious films.
I remember because he did The Majestic was a film where he was trying to play like a serious character.
Right, because he's like this corporate guy, gets amnesia, falls into like he gets picked up in a small town. I know what it was
about, yeah.
But then he did The Majestic. He did Eternal Spotlight. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I forgot about that movie.
He did like a semi-serious thriller called Number 23.
He did Bruce Almighty.
But see, Bruce Almighty's when he kind of came back to do comedy.
Yeah, maybe he has been just doing stuff the whole time, and I'm not.
He did that Dick and Jane movie.
He did Yes Man.
Yes Man.
All right, he's been doing a lot of stuff. Never mind.
Yeah, he's been working.
Mm-hmm.
like his latest films haven't been as good. I mean, I loved Bruce Almighty. That one I will say I did like. But he's just a weird. I don't know if it's just he's letting his weirdness hang out, and before they used to like keep it under wraps.
I think it's because I don't feel like Jim Carrey's evolved much as a comedian. He's pretty much.
I see why you would say that.
He's pretty much doing the same thing he did back then.
I could see why you would say that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, whatever. He's fucking rich.
Because even when Jerry goes to pick him up, he, instead of walking outside like a normal person, he jumps over the fence.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
And I'm like, okay, that's Jim being Jim. I get it.
You're fucking... yeah. Whatever.
And he does that weird thing with the creamer. Or the sweetener.
Yeah, he drops it. And he brings his own sweetener. And he doesn't drink coffee. He drinks tea. Whatever. That's what he fucking likes to do. But
great. If you're interested, if it's just like, if you're a fan of comedy in any aspect, watch it. But also, if you just like watching good conversation, watch it. Yeah, because I have a feeling like he has a good conversation with Stephen Colbert about comedy. John Oliver, who I love. They have some great, and David Letterman. Like those three were really great.
I should watch the David Letterman one.
The David Letterman one's great because not only do they switch cars in the middle of it,
right?
And Jerry's like, I'm not going to drive this second car. Like, it's kind of funny when they interact with each other because they talk about late night.
Those are the episodes that are more interesting, I think. The ones where they're, like, basically comedy legends. Mm-hmm. The Mel Brooks one is really good, too.
Yeah.
And then, what was the other one? I don't know. I did watch the Ricky Gervais one.
That one was boring to me.
Really?
Yeah, because half of it was Jerry scaring him in the car.
Yeah, he didn't really have much to say. But,
I think it's because Jerry was kind of just a fan of Ricky's, and Ricky was just they were just kind of having funny moments.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais is somebody else who, like, it's weird because he's done so much shit, though. You think that he would have a lot to talk about.
And it's funny that other comedians mention him.
Yeah, he's done The Office, he's done extras, he does tours as David Brent. Do you know that?
I do.
He does, like...
He also had a comedy special that I watched on Netflix.
Yeah, he's
had a couple of them.
I really like a lot of his stuff.
He did a bunch of movies too. One that came over to America was The Invention of Lying.
Right. I mean, and obviously created The Office. I know I mentioned that already, but it's like
that's a big deal because he's executive producer of the American one too.
Yeah. That's a good way to go into our next topic. We were watching a show called Episodes.
Oh, right,
They just put this on Netflix.
Which I had always heard was a great series.
Yeah, so did I. And I had always heard about it, but it was one of those shows that I was like, that's great. Where the fuck am I supposed to watch it? And
was it a Showtime episode?
It's a Showtime show.
Okay, that's why.
And I think the end of the show says for BBC. So I'm wondering if like it was over there and they literally just rebroadcast it here or like brought it over here.
I mean, they could have because it's probably the exact same premise, and they did it the exact same way with another actor over there.
Right. So the way I loosely tie that in is The Office gets remade over here in America. Mm-hmm. They have different casts, and they have more seasons and stuff.
Right.
The Office in Britain only has 2 seasons, and it seals itself up real nicely, and it's just basically not there to make money. It's just a passion project.
Right.
And Episodes is basically a show about that happening to these 2 British writers. They have a show that's kind of their baby that they really like doing. And it's funny, but it only runs like 4 series over there, right?
Right.
And in America, they want to have this show run like 8 or 9 because that's how shows work in America.
Right. We just keep them going for as long as we can.
Right, and it stars Matt LeBlanc, who plays himself.
Yeah, he plays Joey.
Yeah, which is actually the crux of a lot of the jokes.
Yeah, like, okay, so the kind of the overview is this is Matt LeBlanc's life after not only Friends but Joey as well,
right?
Because they mention it. So this is Matt LeBlanc trying to do another hit show, and the network has brought over. They're trying to do The Office, like you said,
right?
But when it gets over here, and they bring these 2, they're a comedy duo, but they're married.
Right.
They bring them over here. They just mess with the whole thing.
They start picking it apart. And it's funny, too, because it's... I think it's a very accurate representation of what could happen in a network scenario.
It does happen.
As far as like on screen goes. They should.
Yes.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yes.
they can basically show as much as they could, to simulate the real thing. Because I imagine that happens to a lot of people. They get promised all this stuff. We're gonna fly you out, and as soon as they get there, it's like, oh, you know what? We have a few changes, and it turns out those few changes were things that you really wanted, or like were basically the whole reason they took the deal.
I mean, it's obviously exaggerated more because supposedly the first scene starts with this guy, the not head of a network, but he's in head of programming. Comes up to these guys at their award show, and he tells them, "Love your stuff, love your show. We want to do the exact same thing over in America." And by the time he gets there, the comedy people or the writers get over there. The team that works for him tells him, "Yeah, he hasn't watched your show. He doesn't know what it's about. We're not gonna do the same thing. We're gonna use different people." Actually, he wants Matt LeBlanc, and that's how he gets brought in. Is that they're like, he's available. He's Joey. We can get a star for this.
Which, by the way, is a great way to set the tone for the rest of the series.
Yes.
If you thought this show was gonna be like showing Matt LeBlanc or Joey in a positive light, it's not. Which is what I really like about it.
It was a little cringy to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, it's honestly the reason I love It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because you're basically filming the worst vile human beings like on Earth.
Yeah.
And it just so happens they work in Hollywood.
Right. So. But these two people that come from the UK to go do this, they're actually normal.
Right.
But they get thrown into this network where the head boss, his name is Merc. He's making decisions that make no sense and then blaming everybody for his decisions.
Well, it's not that they don't make any sense. It's that it's stuff that he's seen succeed.
Right, but it doesn't make sense because he sees something and he wants it. He sees something and he wants it, but he doesn't realize to make something good,
it has to be different from...
Well, it has to be different, but if you have an idea, you got to make sure that idea is cohesive. You can't just start sticking things in it that he thinks might work. And, like, he passes up on the sitcom because he's like, that's a stupid idea, and then that idea gets sold to a different network and then becomes really, really popular.
It's funny because that's more or less how,
but
you could say a network works is that, like...
But again, then he blames everybody. He's like, how did we pass up on the dog?
Right.
He's like, you passed up on the dog.
I meant more about, like, you saying that he's just throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Right, but...
It's like, it's Fox Network in a nutshell. It's
yeah,
like they have, like, the longest list of canceled shows, right? Or something like that.
And that there's a... I mean, that can work. But the thing is, like, for a show like this... You can't like start out with an idea and then mess with it as the show goes.
Oh right, yeah.
Because that's just gonna confuse people. You know what I mean? Like you have to kind of keep it consistent throughout the entire.
Yeah, this is a very exaggerated version of what could happen, I guess, because
no, but it does happen.
The show is called Lyman's Boys in England, and when they bring it over to America, it's called Pucks.
Yeah, because
and it's completely different. It's in no way the same thing. As you can tell by the title,
Yeah, because, like, for example, it's a story about a headmaster who's in love with... he's, like, an older headmaster.
Right.
Like, in his 60s. And he's in love with this 30-something-year-old librarian lesbian.
Right.
So it's a kind of a story of a love that he can never have. So it's kind of a funny comedy because...
Yeah, and that to them was the genius of it.
Because it was subtle.
Right.
And there was this little strange twist to it. When they bring it over here, Matt LeBlanc is like, how come I can't be a hockey player or a hockey coach or something? And they're like, oh, yeah, that works. And then they're like, oh, how come she has to be a lesbian? Why can't she just be straight? And he's like, oh, okay, well, let's change that. So the whole things get changed around. And all of a sudden they're like, why wasn't it a hit show? It worked over there. He's like, because this isn't the same show.
I love those parts where the writers are just like, it's not the same fucking show.
But they have to tell everybody that because the oh my gosh, the lady I hate the most is the head of comedy, quote unquote, because she permanently has that stupid face like she's smelling something disgusting in the air, and she doesn't know how to do her job.
It's funny too because like, without giving too much away, like I'm not trying to talk shit on companies that we've worked for, but it's like we've worked for networks before, you and me, and
the decisions they make are just mind-boggling.
There's certain things, that are very apparent to like. I mean, I see him in the show, and I'm like, hey, that sounds familiar, or like, hey, this scenario, like I think I've lived that before. That's funny.
It's like I'll give an example and it'll make it kind of vague.
Please.
For a network that we worked for, there was like when you pitch a show, you have what's called a sizzle reel, which shows off how it's supposed to be, you know, and what we want this show to be. So this particular show had celebrity guest stars like Justin Timberlake, Usher was really big at the time, just like some big people. When the show was actually made, it was like, oh, this guy makes like really cool artwork for the local businesses around here in LA. He's really cool, right? It was like, where's Justin Timberlake? Where are the big stars and everything?
What they bought it for.
And it's like, that's what we bought it for. He's like, well, this is all we could do. You know, and it's like, you want to do this really good piece, and then you deliver something that's just like, eh.
And I mean, I'll take it a step further and say, like, when the people that are in these jobs that are clearly not fit for their jobs, but somehow got those jobs, I'm like, oh, okay. Because I can definitely see how they...
And in the show, they actually touch on it. It's like somebody's contractually obligated to do something. Or somebody was like, you promised me you were going to do something like this for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like one of the hosts for one of the shows that was being developed, it was like, why is he the host of this? And he's like, oh, because we promised... He invested, and so he got promised something. And I was like, oh my God, is that how he got this job?
It's funny.
It's just bad.
But yeah, so you know, Matt LeBlanc is obviously the star of the show. It was funny because as I was watching it too, I was expecting like, I don't know, like, you know, sitcom actors don't have the best repertoire. You know, like they're seen kind of like bottom of the barrel, if I'm correct, right? Like doing TV sitcom acting is like...
I think at the time that Friends was on, and like a little bit after that, yes, that's correct.
Also, like, not to get too off subject, but like we were talking about Seinfeld and how those guys love to come back and see each other. Name another sitcom where that is the case.
Oh, just Friends.
Yeah, okay, Friends. Yeah. But it's like they haven't even done a reunion. I feel like there's so many...
I thought you meant like the actors still keep in touch.
I mean, maybe they do, but I don't know. Like, I feel like everyone on the Big Bang Theory hates each other, or like whatever's on TV now. I feel like they're just doing it because, like, wasn't like Saved by the Bell at one point they were just like, yeah, we fucking hated that show. We didn't like.
No, there was. You remember when they did the reunion on the Jimmy Fallon show or something like that? They only had like 3 of the cast members, which was like Mario Lopez, Zach, and Kelly. I think they had Kelly.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not sure, but Dustin Diamond wasn't there, and neither was Lisa Turtle.
Wow.
Because Lisa Turtle, I heard, was crazy, and I think Dustin Diamond was in jail because he stabbed somebody on.
I did hear about that.
Something like that. It was like he stabbed somebody on New Year's Day or something.
Yeah,
something like that. And so
there was like a sword involved or something. I'm not even joking. I think there was like whatever.
I think it was just a knife.
Anyway, getting back to my point.
Sorry.
Joey actually does a really good job acting in this show.
Yeah, because he's not playing like a heart of gold person. He's playing somebody who's real, who's struggling.
Yeah, he's playing him an exaggerated version of himself. So it's not just straight up sitcom acting, like pause for laughter kind of stuff. He's actually being himself. Exaggerated, which is kind of a dick. Well, I should say very much.
I don't want to believe that's him. Like this is what I was saying earlier. It's a little cringy to watch because I want to believe that Matt
is Joey.
No, not is Joey, but Matt is a good person. I want to say that. I want to say he's.
I'm sure
a genuinely good person.
Saying. That's why I'm saying it's exaggerated.
Yeah, but like in the episode, he's divorced. He's fighting a custody battle with his kids. He hasn't had a hit in a while. Yeah, and he's trying to like even in the show, he's like just trying to make deals to get something to hit.
And the other Friends cast don't really keep in touch.
They don't like him.
Yeah,
they don't like him. That scene is hilarious. By the way, there is a scene where he tries to get in touch with his friends, and he's like David, Lisa, Jennifer, Matt, Matthew,
and they're all like, "Fuck you."
He's like, when did I take that out? I never took it out. Okay, maybe I did. Maybe I did take it out. He's like, when did I say that? It's just like he's portrayed as a very like rock bottom. He's not out of money.
Right.
Obviously, because he's got Friends money. That thing is syndicated through, like, I think 7 countries at this point. It's all over the world.
Right.
But he's definitely like, where did my career go?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's I don't know though. It's entertaining to me for some reason. I guess it's just It's actually one of the writers that did Friends, right?
Yeah,
so
David Crane.
It's David Crane.
Yeah.
So I guess I should say it's just cool to see him write in like a different style, or
it's real
for something that isn't a sitcom. You know, like writing for something that he can actually like, you know, he can say the F word, you know, or he can get a little dirtier. It's like, not that I'm a huge fan of that or need that, but I'm just saying it's nice to see. Not the same thing, you know.
Right.
Like,
and especially it's refreshing to see Joey play somebody who's not Joey.
Right.
Joey is he liked having sex with lots of girls. He loved to eat, but he always had that heart of gold element that kind of redeemed him. And this one, it's like you start out the series, and Matt LeBlanc is this actor who's just like, "What's this meeting?" He's like, "Is this going to help my career?" Like, he's hustling.
Yeah.
Right. So it's nice to see him play that role because you've never seen him play something like that. So right away, he played that character, but this is a totally different person,
right?
And it's like shocking.
There's actually there's an episode where he like loses a bunch of money, and he's all depressed, and they find out like he still has like a shitload of money, and they're just like, just so you know, like, that's still a good amount of money. And he's just like, did you not hear what I said? I lost a lot of, like... I think that's what you're talking about, that he's just a fucking dick actor guy, basically.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's refreshing to see him play, because he does have moments where you see his softer side come out, because all this stuff is happening, but in the end, he's still human, and he still wants the basic things, like he wants to be loved, he wants to love people. Although I'll say this, I fell in love with the two characters. The two British writers are the centerpiece to this whole thing.
Yeah, they do a good job. I didn't think I was going to like them at first, but they grew on me.
Yeah, because they have a genuine problem where, like, they come from their home where everything's quote unquote perfect, right? And they come to America, and like in the first month,
it's just
their marriage falls apart.
It's like culture shock, you know?
Yeah, but like their marriage falls apart. They're pissed at each other, but they still have to work on this show together, and that's where the real stuff takes place, and it's super funny.
It's funny too because it almost makes me sad because every time there's like a moment where they're like, okay, this could be good for us, I'm like, okay, but it's not gonna be, or else there wouldn't be a show, right? You know? And it's the same thing with Matt. I'm like, oh, this can't work out for Matt because there wouldn't be a show if it was...
Which is funny because they make that joke in the very beginning. Joey tells the British writer, he's like, this is why you need to change this. Because if something is... I guess, if you do this certain thing, you have nowhere to go from the story.
Right.
So this can't be true.
That's why he was saying, like... He's the one that tells them that like shows in America run for like 8 or 9 seasons because they drag shit out, and he uses Ross and Rachel as an example. He's like, "Why do you think that was the last episode?" He's like, "We can't give them that shit like season 3. Like we have to drag it out."
Exactly.
But I think if you're a fan of Friends, you might like this show. I kind of find it hilarious that Joey, the show, had to fail in order for this one to be so great because they get a lot of material from like that train wreck basically.
They do because there's like it's so meta because at one point they refer to Joey as like, and they make it a joke and be like, I thought Joey was good, like, and they say that he's like no, and then gets real pissed at it, but they have so many meta jokes in there about like.
He has
Joey says to somebody, or Matt LeBlanc says, yeah, maybe I should just do a sitcom about how that thing bombed and how I'm trying to get my career back together. and then 2 of the girls are walking up this like hill or something, and she goes like, oh my gosh, I should write your story. I should write a story about 2 British writers who come over here and the culture shock breaks up their marriage. He's like, I could do that. I could write it right now. And I'm like, that's what we're watching.
Right. Yeah, I get it. And also, they make reference to, like... I don't know if it was real, but he had a cologne called Joey.
Is that real?
I don't know if that's real, but it smelled like cinnamon or something, and And it's funny because they talk about it. He's like, yeah, I have fucking cases of it in my garage. And
I mean, that could be true because, I mean, I've heard several celebrities sent. Remember when that was a big thing?
Yeah,
like
Justin
Bieber had
Jennifer
one.
Aniston has one right now.
There was somebody had one where they put a drop of their own blood in it.
That is so fucking weird.
Do you know what do you remember that?
Fucking weird.
Who was it?
No, I don't remember that.
There was a celebrity who was like, or spit or blood or something, like they put a little bit of their DNA into the bottle. I don't know how they did that, but like supposedly that's what it was. And I was like, that is disgusting. And there were so many people who had fragrances.
I hope they don't have HIV. Sorry. Anyway, keep going.
It's not like they're squirting it in their mouth.
Yeah, it might get in there. Who knows?
But I love that they do those kind of jokes because, you know, Joey's trying to open a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And that's something that actors try to do to make money. Like, create steady income.
He has, like, his own vineyard, apparently, too. They talk about all this stupid shit that he bought with his
money. Nightclub. He opens a nightclub in Las Vegas.
But, yeah, so I would recommend it. I think it's really good, and it's they're half-hour episodes. It's not like an hour-long show. I think it's pretty easy to run through. As
very cringy, but... Like the first few episodes, like I hate to use that word because
cringy.
it is really like I hate to use that word because it's really overused, especially on YouTube. But it's very cringy for the first few episodes. But if you can get past the first 3 episodes, it's the heart of the show starts to come out after that.
I think what attracted me most to this show was not Joey. Was like, well, yeah, sure, Joey, but like just how fucked up these people are, especially Merc.
Merc especially.
Just the things that he says, it's like, where do you see this kind of stuff? This is amazing. It's just great.
Oh, and just warnings. There's a lot of simulated nudity and sex in it, so
don't watch it in front of
your kids.
In front of your kids or your parents or work. You know.
Oh, and the last thing I want to say about it is there's a running gag in it about Joey's anatomy. I think that was a Matt LeBlanc's idea.
Sure. Yeah, why not? I mean, exaggerated version of himself, like I said.
Right. When I heard the joke the first time, I was like, it's a groaner, but it becomes a running gag, and I'm like,
yeah, I know.
All right, I'll buy it.
That's a bit like whatever. I could do without it. It's not a perfect show, obviously, but I enjoy it. We've yet to finish it too, so you know.
Right, we're gonna. I think I'm on season. Like I'm halfway through season 3. Steven's already on season 4.
Yeah. So
we'll be finished with it pretty soon. Because like you said, half-hour episodes, pretty easy to digest.
Yeah. But yeah, we've played some games too. So what came out on Xbox Live that was free this month?
Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider.
Not the
Underworld.
Is
that what it's called?
Yeah, Underworld. Like there was some crazy angel lady with white hair. Then she had this platinum version of Lara Croft in it. It's like this weird. It's a weird game, man.
Yeah, Tomb Raider games. Old Tomb Raider games, I should say, before the rebranding, before the reboot.
But this was still Flirty Laura.
Yeah,
I enjoyed Flirty Laura.
It's a bit jank.
That's putting it mildly, dude. That is super jank. Like the way she moves, I'm like, this game didn't come out on Xbox. It came out on Xbox 360. Okay, there were plenty of games already that had a third-person style thing. Like Uncharted was already out.
Oh yeah, before 360, dude.
Why was this game as janky as it was? Like her movements are ridiculous.
Yeah.
I died most of the time because I tell her to jump forward and she'll jump slightly to the side.
It's really hard to tell where you need to go to.
Yeah.
You kept handing me the controller like, I'm so fucking done with this game. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Oh my god. And then there's parts where like you just have to blind jump.
Yeah,
and I don't dig that. I don't dig that at all. And also the shooting mechanic is so weird and broken.
Yeah, it's Lara Croft. I mean, what do you want? That was how her games were before they decided to give her a makeover or whatever.
I mean, but the excuse there was that, you know, when Crystal Dynamics first started making that game, it was like, this is the first of its kind. It's a third-person shooter in 3D, and it's going to be puzzles and this double.
I don't know if it was the first of its kind, but sure.
Okay, well, it was the first It was PlayStation, so they were still trying to figure some things out.
She got popular because her tits were huge. I don't know if you know that.
Really, that's the big draw.
If that's what you're getting at, I mean, that's why she's here.
Maybe that's why she doesn't work as much anymore. Because, you know, get porn on your phone, so you don't even need to go to a video game to do that.
Sure, Maybe.
Yeah. But I enjoyed the cutscenes and everything are fun and they're jokey, and she's got that sexy flirty quality to her. That's fun.
Yeah.
You know.
PlayStation this month we got what do we get? We got Deus Ex Human. What is it called? Mankind Divided, I believe it's called.
With the hot dog lady.
Dude, I was so fucking... the hot dog lady.
Isn't that the one where there's this lady who's digging out a hot dog from the trash can and eating it? She's like a homeless lady.
I don't know.
You remember that? Okay.
These are weird references.
Okay.
That fucking game, it went down in price really fast, actually. Like, surprisingly fast, which I thought was like a bad sign. Mm-hmm. I think that game is great, and I looked up reviews and stuff. That game has great reviews.
I've never heard people complain about that game.
Extremely fucking happy with it. I'm so glad I got this shit for free. Did you ever play any of the other Deus Ex games?
No, that was the first one I ever played, and I didn't even play it for that long because I don't know what came out around the same time where I just skipped this game.
Wait, which one are you talking about?
The one with Adam, where he has that is that not the one that you played?
2 have come out. That's
2 have come out?
Yeah, Mankind.
Oh, then I definitely haven't played this one.
This is on PS4.
Oh, damn.
What do you think I'm talking about?
I thought it was the same one that came out on 360.
No, that's Human Revolution.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Human Revolution's pretty old, so you played that one.
Yeah, I played that one. With the hacking and the weird arm stuff.
Yeah, that's a good game, albeit a little bit cheesy at points.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I wouldn't really compare it to like Skyrim or like Fallout because it doesn't have that map. You know, it doesn't have those big maps, but...
Because the old one had like sections.
It does, yeah, it does have that sense of freedom still. Like, if you don't want to do the main mission, you don't have to. You can just go out and break into people's houses, and you level up for exploring. There's like, you get into like an apartment in a creative way, and it'll give you like experience. And
oh, wow, that's actually pretty cool.
I got so many levels just off of like finding ways to get into people's houses and different apartments and hacking different things. I'm having a fucking blast with it right now.
It sounds actually fun because that premise sounds familiar. Like I used to play Watch Dogs, and then I tried to play Watch Dogs 2 a while back. Like, I get it. I'm supposed to be like this cool hacker dude, and you get points for hacking and doing all this stuff. Just super boring in that game.
Yeah, I could see
They just don't make it worth your while.
You know what it is? It's like these guys that make Deus Ex, they know what people like to do in video games. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because it's kind of like, it's a stealthy game. You can play the game stealthy, right? But just the amount of freedom you get, man, I can't like stress that enough. There's so many ways to do like the same thing in this game. Yeah, you can. It's.
I mean, the way you talk about it sounds like Breath of the Wild.
Kind of, yeah. But I don't know. I really enjoy it. Hopefully, I can finish it by the next podcast or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we can wrap this up now. Final thoughts, Ernie, on our small little podcast here.
On a small little podcast, if you're gonna take away anything this week, I would say episodes is a little bit of a commitment. Yeah, I would say start off with the comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah, they're only like 13 something minutes, right? Or like
the longest one is 17.
Yeah,
they're really short as 15.
Short episodes.
Just really great conversations. It actually makes me want to do that. Like that kind of show makes you want to actually go out like with your friends and interview them because of the little conversations you think you can have.
I'm watching that show and thinking, I want Jerry's life. Not because he's rich, but just because his friends are like famous fucking people that have like amazing like reputations, you know? It's like
and some of them aren't even his friends.
That's what
because
I'm saying.
Some of them are just like I'm Jerry Seinfeld, and I come to this person. I call this guy up and be like, "Hey man, I'm thinking of shooting one of my episodes of Comedians in Comedy. Would you like to do one?" And they're like, "Yeah, I want to do it. I want to be considered Jerry's friend."
Yeah, I'm like, no way Kevin Hart is his friend. Like, no offense, but that guy's brand new and Jerry Seinfeld. Well, maybe not. Scary Movie 3, right? Whatever.
I don't know. Was he in that?
Yeah, he's a little guy.
Oh, okay.
Remember that?
Go. I don't remember that. I don't remember that movie.
Anthony Anderson's like the big guy and he's the small guy.
Dude,
like,
don't remember
whatever.
That. I just saw him Jumanji. That's about it.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Well, what about you? Final thoughts?
I say go watch Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. It's a great show. And like I said, it's It's got that raw quality, that stuff that you want to see, the behind the scenes, the real people behind the laughs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just scroll through it. Check out the list of episodes. If there's someone in there that you think you like, or it might be an
definitely
story.
go to a comedian.
There's even Barack Obama. There's an episode with Barack Obama.
Yeah.
If you like,
they dedicated 2 episodes to Jimmy Fallon for some reason.
Yeah, just skip those.
But
anyway.
Barack Obama, that's on my. I want to watch that one too.
Yeah, so if you're a fan of this country, go ahead and watch Barack Obama. Now, but yeah, and if you have a PlayStation, try out Deus Ex. I would say at least try it out if you got a PlayStation.
I would say don't try out Tomb Raider.
Don't try it out.
That's
okay,
an awful game.
Don't try it out. Sure, why not? But all right, that's it for this week, guys. See you next week.
See you next week, guys.